This land is parching. This land is burning. No seed is growing in the barren ground. Oh, healing river, send down your waters. Oh, healing river, send your waters down. Let the seed of freedom awake and flourish. Let the deep roots nourish. Let the tall stalks rise. Oh, healing river, send down your waters. Oh, healing river, from out the sky. Oh, healing river, send down your waters and wash the blood from off the sand.
Welcome to Pittsburgh Mennonite Church this morning. As we gather this morning, the past couple of weeks, I have been traveling. I had a software development sprint in Copenhagen. And thinking about the theming for today, that of creation, flying to Copenhagen to do software development, which typically we do with our partners throughout the year remotely, is a very high impact ecological trip. And yet on the other hand, the relationships that we form sitting face to face to someone to talk about problems and how we can fix them within software is also a high impact relationship. When I was in Copenhagen and on the flights there and back, I saw a tremendous amount of single-use waste. And yet, while I was there, I also saw composting in the library and recycling everywhere, while at the same time knowing that a lot of that recycling is really just going to go to a rubbish heap anyway and not truly be recycled. I saw bikes as a primary mode of transportation within the city. And I sat over dinner and talked with some folks about the prevalence of electric vehicles and whether or not this is really actually any better than petroleum-based vehicles, the way that batteries are mined and what to do with them when we can't use them anymore. I had the most delicious strawberries in the Nordic summer as the plants get this gentle sun from 4 in the morning until midnight and ripened slowly over time. And I saw a little bee sticker that said, if they die, we die. On the flight back, it was in Heathrow, and there is a multi-faith room. And still trying to think of what can I take away from this to help me frame our entry into this service? There was a multi-faith room, and the first point of the rules of entering the multi-faith room were take off your shoes, which I wasn't expecting as the first one, but it was there. And it made me think about Moses' encounter with Yahweh, to approach the bush that is burning and is not consumed, and take off your shoes, this is holy ground. It made me think about walking barefoot on the ground, in the dirt, connected, and yet muddy, with gunk between the toes. It made me think about the ambiguity and the challenge and the reality of living on this planet and dealing with simultaneously our hopes and our fears and our failures. So this morning, I want to light the peace lamp not in remembering any particular organization or people, but rather for just this ambiguous and tenuous and resilient and vibrant relationship that we have with our planet, and how we can approach that barefoot and dirty and holy. Invite our musicians to come up and lead us in song.
Thank you, Clinton. If you'd like to join me in standing, we'll sing together a few songs. The first will be number 495 from our purple hymnal, number 495. Again, if you'd like to stand, you're welcome to stand and join me.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of a new light, Eden's soft play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
So Philip will give us an introduction and we'll dig in.
This pretty planet spinning through space, your garden, your harbor, your holy place. Golden sun going down, gentle blue giant, spin us around. All through the night.
7, all things bright and beautiful, we'll sing together.
This is a reading from 1 Genesis, verses 1 through 2, verse 4a. When God began to create the heavens and the earth was complete chaos, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day.
And God said, "Let there be a dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." So God made the dome and separated the waters that were under the dome from the waters that were above the dome. And it was so. God called the dome sky. And there was evening, and there was morning, the second day.
And God said, "Let the waters under the sky be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the earth put forth vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees of every kind on earth that bear fruit with the seed in it." And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed of every kind, and trees of every kind bearing fruit with the seed in it. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day.
And God said, "Let there be lights in the dome of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let them be lights in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth. And it was so. God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser night to rule the night, and the stars. God set them in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 4th day.
And God said, "Let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the dome of the sky." So God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves, of every kind, with which the waters swarm, and every winged bird of every kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth." And there was evening, there was morning, the 5th day.
And God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle and creeping things, and wild animals of the earth of every kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals of the earth of every kind, and the cattle of every kind, and everything that creeps upon the ground of every kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make humans in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created humans in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth." God said, "See, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw everything that he had made, and indeed, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 6th day.
Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all their multitude. On the 6th day, God finished the work that he had done, and he rested on the 7th day from all the work that he had done. So God blessed the 7th day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all the work that he had done in creation. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created, in the day when the Lord God made the heavens and the earth.
Hey, you made it. You're safe. All right, hi. Hello. Hey guys, my name is Hannah, and we just heard about so many new beginnings for the earth, for plants, for animals, for lights, and I was thinking, you guys have probably already seen a lot of new beginnings in your lives. I was thinking back to my childhood, to some of the new beginnings I saw. We had a cat who gave birth to her kitties in our closet, and I remember seeing how beautiful those eyes were when they first opened, how beautiful those little kittens were. There are all sorts of new beginnings. I got a very dramatic haircut when I was about 7. I chopped my hair off about here, and my brothers started calling me Bob. So Bob cut and Bob. So I was wondering, do you have any new beginnings you can share? What's that? My real name is Hannah. Hannah Joy. Yeah, my middle name is Hannah Joy, and I am Hannah Joy Godwin. And I guess the day I was given that name was a new beginning. What's your full name? Do you have a full name?
I forget.
Okay. Yeah, tell me.
It's Maya Joy Schellenberger.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and the day you were given that name was a new beginning for you, for sure. Can you guys think of any new beginnings in your lives? Yeah.
Today, me and Matty are going to summer camp.
Oh my goodness, it is. I think that's going to summer camp is a beginning of a lot of things. Yeah.
Today, my team, we're going to my coach's house to have a pool party.
Oh my goodness. What kind of new beginning is that?
It's like the end of my soccer team.
Oh, perfect. We're experiencing those all the time. Anybody else?
Soccer.
Sorry about that.
I already finished at the end of my soccer.
That's awesome. Yeah?
Whenever we got our 3-day-old chicks.
What's that? You got 3-day-old chicks? Oh my goodness. Did you bring them home with you? Wow. What did they look like?
One was a orangey brown, another was black and white. What did Cleo look like? Another had was white and had little, and it looked like eyeliner. And the last one was gold and black.
Oh my goodness, they look beautiful. Wow. Well, thank you guys. We're going to keep talking about new beginnings and how God created the heavens and the earth. Thank you so much.
If you have your digital bulletin and you can click through to the next song, or you can open your hymnal, we'll sing number 182, number 182 together.
I sing the mighty power of God that made the mountains rise, that spread the flowing seas abroad and built the lofty skies. I sing the wisdom that ordained the sun to rule the day. The moon shines full at God's command, and all the stars obey. I sing the goodness of the Lord that filled the earth with food. God formed the creatures with a word and then pronounced them good. Lord, how thy wonders are displayed where'er I turn my eye. If I survey the ground I tread or gaze upon the sky, there's not a plant or flower below, but makes thy glories known. And clouds arise and tempests blow by order from thy throne. While all that borrows life from thee is ever in thy care, there's not a place where we can flee, but God is present there.
In lieu of saying a prayer before we begin, I'd like to read a poem. So if you want to just take a minute, find a comfortable position, maybe put your hands out, palms facing up, maybe close your eyes, listen to the sound of your breath. This is Sleeping in the Forest by Mary Oliver. I thought the earth remembered me. She took me back so tenderly, arranging her dark skirts, her pockets full of lichens and seeds. I slept as never before, a stone on the riverbed, nothing between me and the white fires of the stars, but my thoughts, and they floated light as moths among the branches of the perfect trees. All night I heard the small kingdoms breathing around me, the insects and the birds who do their work in the darkness. All night I rose and fell as if in water, grappling with a luminous doom. By morning, I had vanished at least a dozen times into something better. The house that I grew up in was on the top of a little hill, as much as a hill you can have in Kansas, surrounded by wheat fields in the middle of the country. If you look on Google Maps today, my parents' property looks like a little green postage stamp on a brown envelope. 25 years ago, it was different. In Kansas, the wind is strong enough that hedgerows and thickets of trees are necessary to help keep the rich topsoil in place so that crops can grow. The farmers who owned the fields surrounding my house wanted every inch of it to be covered in crops. So I grew up watching hedgerow after hedgerow disappear. What used to be fields lined with rows of evergreen trees and dotted with tiny oases of creeks and ponds and sandhill plum bushes became sparser and browner. Over time, the thick golden wheat that once grew became patchy as the topsoil blew away. Covering land in crops to squeeze every dollar from it doesn't work without the protection of the trees that keep the nourishing topsoil in place. As rabbits, deer, coyotes, and field mice lost their habitats, the crop yields decreased too. This land, which once was home to bison and elk and native prairie grasses, has been plowed and burnt and paved. The delicate ecosystems that held nutrients in the soil have largely been lost, and the land that we use to grow food has been scarred. The story of humans working against nature in the name of greed is not unique to my hometown. Every year, thousands of square kilometers of Amazonian rainforest are clear-cut, an act that can reduce rainfall in a region by up to 40%. As the number of trees and inches of rain decrease, the land that the clear-cut rainforest once grew on is turning to desert. Water is becoming scarce for surrounding cities, and wildfires and the lack of trees threaten the lives of the animals and the people who call the Amazon their home. The forest also plays an important role in absorbing carbon, and as more trees are cut, the carbon capturing abilities of the forest are diminished. Humanity continues to take from the earth more than it can give. Our scripture this morning is a familiar passage, one that most of us have read or heard dozens of times. As I was preparing this week, I took some time to sit with the passage and try to read it with fresh eyes. I was reminded that even in an English translation of this Hebrew text, the passage is beautifully constructed prose. The first thing that stood out to me is the phrase, "God said," which begins the work that God does each day from day 1 to day 6. In the beginning, there is darkness and deep and God's holy wind, but there is no order. On each day, God calls to the chaos and builds the earth out of it. Each element of the earth is given a complementary pairing, and the passage has symmetry to it. God says, "Let there be light" on the first day, and creates the sun and moon and stars on day 4. Days 2 and 5 are used to make the firmament that separates the waters from the waters, and then to fill the waters and the sky with birds and aquatic life, and even sea monsters, which I think is really cool that those are listed in there. On day 3, the water is gathered together and the land appears, and God covers it with land, animals, and plants. And then on day 6, humans are created to have dominion over God's creation. It is not without intention that the Sabbath, the 7th day, is left without a partner. This story was likely written in this way to emphasize how important and set apart the day of rest should be. God rests on this day, and it is sacred. We'll talk more about the Sabbath and the importance of rest later, but let's explore the role of humans a bit more first. God's process for creating humans in this story is a little bit different than the approach to the rest of creation. The wording here is noteworthy. God says, "Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." In the lines following this one, God creates humans, blesses them, and then tells them to reproduce and fill the earth and subdue it. God first tells the animals to be fruitful and multiply, but humans alone are given the directive to subdue and have dominion over the earth. This is not an instruction to destroy the earth or to take whatever we want. Rather, it is permission to use what we need and only what we need. It is also a bestowing of responsibility on us to be stewards of the earth, to take care of its resources, and ensure that future generations have what they need to thrive. From the very, very beginning, God's expectation of us is that we will work with each other and with the earth to have a mutually beneficial relationship that can be nurtured for generations to come. God makes humans have capacity for creativity, empathy, love, and generosity. But it is only when we use those gifts that we can thrive. The first creation story in Genesis was not the only one written in its time period, but it stands out because it is the only creation story of its time that gives humankind the role of rulers and caretakers of the earth. In other stories, humans are more like slaves or servants that would build temples for the gods, grow them food for sacrifices. Our story demands more of us, but it is also far more empowering. We are living in a critical time period where the actions that we take in the next few years as humankind could be our salvation or our detriment. If we know where to look, we are faced daily with signs of a changing climate. This is not good news. In fact, it's pretty terrifying. The good news is that humans are smart and resourceful, and for the most part, we have the technology and the information that we will need to be able to save the planet. As we read Genesis 1 in this context, we might ask ourselves, how can we reimagine our relationships with each other and with our planet in order for all of us to not only survive, but to thrive? I think that to live faithfully is to live sustainably. God's vision for the planet and for humanity are one in the same. We cannot be the human race that God intended for us to be without caring for the earth and the water and the plants and animals that inhabit them. Earlier, I offered a few anecdotes about agriculture gone wrong. There are a lot of ways for it to go right, though. So when I was in college, I spent a semester in Guatemala. I learned while I was there that nearly every family that lived in rural areas would have a little plot of land where they grew vegetables to feed their families. I don't know how each of you with gardens organizes your plot of land, but when I was a kid, our garden was always sectioned off with corn in one spot, a place for tomatoes, little hills for the cucumbers to spill off of, a fence for the snow peas to vine around, and so on. We always grew our radishes and carrots together, though. And when I was a kid, my mom told me that radishes and carrots grow better when they are together because they can each provide what the other one needs to thrive. In Guatemala, this is how the entire gardens are structured. Every inch is covered in rows of corn, but then there are tomatoes and squash and all manner of other veggies that are hidden among that corn. Guatemalans do have a great environment to grow in. Their growing season is basically the entire year. It's beautiful there, like all the time, so stuff just grows whenever it wants. But they have also figured out which plants should be next to each other to help all of the plants grow better. Over the years, I've thought about the gardens in Guatemala a lot. Putting the plants together rather than separating them is such a simple concept, but it is so effective in allowing the crop yields to be higher, the land to be used more efficiently in order for more plants to grow on a smaller plot of land. Land use for agriculture takes away natural habitats, and it can cause all sorts of problems. But there are a lot of humans on the planet, and we all have to eat, and we all have to have shelter. So land used for food and for building materials is a huge piece of the sustainability puzzle. There are lots of technical ways to reduce the amount of land use for these things, and there are all sorts of companies and organizations that are working on implementing these ideas. A few years ago, a researcher named Paul Hawken gathered a bunch of other researchers and began Project Drawdown, which identifies the 100 most viable solutions for combating climate change. There are about 16 of those 100 that are directly related to agriculture for food, including regenerative agriculture practices, better irrigation techniques, improved rice cultivation, and a whole bunch of other stuff. The solutions outside of agriculture for food range in topic from better family planning and women's education to energy use, to more sustainable buildings and cities, to improved land practices for land used for building materials. We have focused mostly on agriculture-related stories this morning, But sustainability is this massive, complex thing that affects every aspect of our lives and every system that's in place. That may seem overwhelming, but it also means that each one of us can start small and we can start anywhere. We can find the problems that each of us are interested in and learn what we can do to help solve them. Working towards a more sustainable planet will not be easy because there's not a one-size-fits-all solution to problems that we're facing, but it is beautiful and exciting because there are so many different ways to work at making the world a better place to live. I mentioned earlier that we would come back to the Sabbath, so before I wrap up, I want to spend a moment talking about rest. We are not created to work without rest. It is so important to take the time that we need to rejuvenate and take care of ourselves. Especially when we're facing big, complex problems, it can be difficult to make time for ourselves and for our needs. But if we don't, we will overextend ourselves and get burned out. And this means taking care of our minds and our hearts as well as our bodies. And spiritual and mental health are just as important as physical health. A key to humanity thriving is for us to learn to take care of ourselves. If God needs to rest, so do we. As I was preparing this morning, I thought a lot about how I wanted to wrap up. I wanted to acknowledge that we do have a sustainability team here at PMC that's already doing some great work. And I also think that the work that we do as a community and as a church for justice and for the communities surrounding us is work for sustainability, because if humankind is not all thriving, none of us really are. I am hopeful that the work that we as humans can do for good will be greater than the harms that have been done. And I am also hopeful that we as a congregation can continue to ask ourselves where sustainability and faith might meet.
Let's respond with singing together. If you'll turn to number 712, number 712, we'll sing Beauty for Brokenness together.
Beauty for brokenness, hope for despair. Lord, in the suffering, this is our prayer. Bread for the children, justice, joy, peace. Sunrise to sunset, your kingdom increase. To verse 2. Shelter for fragile lives, cures for their ills, work for the artisans, trade for their skills, rights for the weak, voices to plead the cause of those who can't speak. God of the poor, friend of the weak, give us compassion, we pray. Melt our cold hearts, let tears fall like rain. Come change our love from a spark to a flame. Refuge from cruel wars, havens from fear, cities for sanctuary, freedoms to share. Peace to the
sing number 180, number 180 together.
This is God's wondrous world, and to my listening ears, all nature sings, and round me rings the music of the spheres. This is God's wondrous world. I rest me in the thought of what and trees, of skies and seas, the wonders God has wrought. This is God's wondrous world. The birds their carols raise, the morning light, the dark of night declare their Maker's praise. This is God's wondrous world, a wanderer I may roam. Whate'er my lot, it matters not, my heart is still at home. This is God's wondrous world. Oh, let me ne'er forget that though the wrong seemed oft so strong, God is the ruler yet. This is God's wondrous world. The battle is not done. Jesus who died shall be glorified, and earth and heaven be one.
Go from here into God's wondrous world with a hope of recreation that exceeds the damage that we've inherited and the damage that we did.